Good evening, everyone. Y'all come on and gather around. It's good to see everybody. Welcome to our monthly meeting, Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. I know I put in a newsletter how I was excited to encourage more people to come back and be together face to face. So, thank you all for being here. Do we have any visitors with us tonight? Any first-time guests or visitors? Second time, awesome. And Jim, your brother? Awesome. Good to see you guys. Any new members here tonight? All right. Congratulations. Hey. Love new members. Looking forward to learning from you and doing stuff, learning about your woodworking, seeing your work and all that. We also want to welcome all those that are online. If you're on YouTube or Facebook Live, so nice to see everyone, and it's nice that we have that capability to do that as well. And if you're online and you're not a member, feel free to leave a comment there. Let us know how you found us, or if you have any questions or anything you want to know about being a member. It's pretty doggone easy. We meet here every month on the third Wednesday, and our meetings are open to anyone. You don't have to be a member, but of course we love to have you come in and join up and do some woodworking together. Now's the time we typically go through kind of the officers and leadership reports. I don't really have anything special to report. I know Mike McCauley is out at Scout Camp, so we don't have to hear anything from him. David Roth, you have anything special tonight to speak about? Nothing today? All right. And Craig says he has nothing to report. From our secretary, Gary Milkey, he says our treasurer, sorry, thank you for the correction. Gary, our treasurer, says we have enough money to pay our bills, but we could always use some more. So anybody have any ideas for that? Assets, Chuck back there has some things to sell. Anything to say about the turf box need crews? I know we've been sending out notifications. How's that all going, Chuck? Anything to report? Art? Okay, we had a notification go out. Craig could use more help doing with the screen printing, and Art is doing a great job, but keep looking at those opportunities to come help. It's much appreciated. Now, I'm relatively new to to this role at the Guild, and I see all those notifications. So it is nice to see all the people that have signed up to help. So that's what keeps the Guild going. So my appreciation and our appreciation to all of you. Communications, Brian, I know you're here. Do you have anything to report? Or I know Ron's here. Ron will always remind us that we could use newsletter articles. So if you've got something cool you're working on, or an idea that you want to share, we take articles from everybody. It doesn't have to be anybody who's on the board or on the leadership committee or a master woodworker or anything like that. If anything interesting, we'll take the articles. So send them in. We'd love to see them. So from the website, Mark Crawley says nothing to report. And Don Steele always has magazines. Do you have anything else? Magazines and books for sale. Those are great deals. I may have said this before, but when I started really getting into my woodworking as kind of when I was getting back into it after I was married and moved to Kansas City, I spent a lot of time hunting for fine woodworking magazines. Now you can get them here for what's the going rate? $5 for $1. So that's a pretty doggone good deal. That's good enough for just entertainment. You get a few and read them. There's some great stuff in there. So want to remind everybody that we are here. We do have a presence on social media. We have a Facebook page at KCWWG. We have a Facebook group, Kansas City Woodworkers Guild, and I actually do see comments back and forth. It's kind of nice to see. some good interaction. We've had a few people that say, "Hey, I do woodworking, and I didn't know about your group," so we're hoping we can continue to make connections there. We're also on Instagram and Twitter, and of course we have our YouTube channel. So these meetings go up, and some of the skill builders go up on the YouTube, and of course the podcasts. Uh, uh, Kevin has been doing Woodwords, the podcast, doing interviews. Kevin, a little out of order, but what's new in the podcast world? Yeah, come on up.
I hope some of you watch TV. You know the Woodsmith shop? Okay, you know who Logan Whitmer is? I just interviewed him, and interview with him will be posted on Sunday at 7 o'clock. He was in town because our own Kenan Orhand was, he was doing principal photography on an article that Kenan's doing. And so he was in town. I got a hold of him, and we got an interview in with him. He's unfortunately a Miami Dolphins fan, so just watch for little notations on the screen whenever his thing plays.
What I hear is that they have a more accurate quarterback than Mahomes. That's what Tyreek Hill said, right?
Yeah, that's what he claimed.
I guess we'll see. I don't want to. Hey, I'm a Redskin fan. I'm sorry, you can't say that anymore. I'm a Commanders fan, so that tells you how sad my football has been the last 30 years. Yeah, go ahead and tackle training while you're up.
Okay, all of our classes are filling up. The only class that I have that's got any openings is to build a Moxon vise with Chuck Saunders. And I've got 2 spaces open for that one. That's a nice class. Get you a nice Moxon vise, good for cutting your dovetails. And our July skill builder is Mr. Rob Young. He's going to teach us all about the number 45 Stanley combination plane. So come in and check that one out. And got some things in the works with carving and so forth. So we'll get to that hopefully soon. Just watch for that.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, sir.
I'm a new guy. What is the title of the podcast?
So the question was, what is the title of the podcast? If you look on YouTube, it's Woodwords, the podcast. You can find it on our Kansas City Woodworkers Guild YouTube channel. And so the format is that Kevin has been sort of the champion of it. He's the MC and the interviewer, unless he's getting interviewed, which that has happened. But he typically takes someone from our guild or someone associated with the community or woodworking community and does a 15 to 20 minute interview and talks. It's kind of neat to find that people's history. How do they get into woodworking, whether it was from their dad or an uncle or by necessity or by accident. You know, we all have a story there. It's kind of fun to get to know more about people. Going down the agenda here, Chris McCauley. Chris, you were saying you need some help with the YouTube channel.
Yeah, so like Kevin was saying, we got our podcast. Those who haven't checked it out yet, we are on YouTube under Woodwords, the podcast. We're also on Spotify, and I believe it's being sent to Apple Podcasts, but I haven't been able to confirm that. There's some glitches on that. But if you're on a Spotify podcast listener, you can actually listen to the podcast, and now you can actually watch the podcast on Spotify as well as YouTube. A lot of people know me as the man behind the curtain over there. I kind of help with all the AV stuff here with the guild and also with the Turners. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with all the AV and the live streams. I could use some help. Some of the stuff we need is someone to help run cameras. My camera operator is down at Scout Camp for the next month, so stuff like that I can always help out. And I'm looking to expand the AV stuff. The more help I can get, the more stuff we can do with skill builders and training and the podcast. One of the positions I need help with is even helping me type up YouTube descriptions, and I have some other things on the YouTube channel. That's something that you don't even need to be here at the guild to do. You can do that from home and don't even need to touch the camera or any of this AV equipment. So if you're interested in helping out, I'm happy to help train you, whatever we need. Like I said, the more help we get, the more stuff we can do. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, we could totally use some help. Chris is a hardworking guy, so we appreciate what he always does for us, and a lot of the stuff that we take for granted. I know I do. I wouldn't be much help, but I'm sure someone could step up and help him. That would be really appreciated. Jim Berard, I know I saw Jim. What's our membership up to? 860 and growing. Okay. And if you're not a member, I want to know why, because this is the best deal in town. So programs is very exciting tonight about having Elena here from Culver Props. We'll get to meet her. Hopefully I said your name correctly, but that's exciting. So what else is going on in programs, Matt?
Well, obviously, we got the right one. Okay, so tonight, of course, is the Wooden Propeller Girl is here. We're all looking forward to that. I'm especially looking forward to it because we drive up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, my wife's farm, every so often. We go past Oshkosh. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with Oshkosh. I think it's the second largest air show in the world. I think Paris may be first. But she's got a history. I think the family has a history of attending Oshkosh. 30 years? Yeah, it's really fascinating. Just finding a place to park up there is crazy. Their camping area must be a couple miles long and about a mile deep. But at any rate, in the next month will be, and I never remember the first word, whether it's fabulous, fortuitous.
I think it's flourishing furnishings.
Flourishing furnishings. I guess they I went online and tried to look it up, and there's quite a few different places around the world that put some words like that together, but none of them were in Kansas City, and I just didn't think of flourishing. But it's a fascinating program, according to Jim Bainey. He volunteers there. If it wasn't way the heck on the other side of town, I'd go volunteer there too, but it's way too far of a drive. Grandview? Yeah, I'm over in Fort Leavenworth area, so that's way too much for me. But they should have a really fantastic program. So, and one other program coming up probably will be Taylor Toolworks. They're over in Columbia, and they're one of our biggest sponsors, and they have some really crazy deals. So I'm looking to put them on our list coming up really soon too.
Thanks. Great programs. Safety, I know Steve is out, but he says the next safety orientation is scheduled for Sunday, July the 10th. So some of you may be looking for that. And they're still looking for members on the safety committee. So if you have an interest in that, let me know, or get a hold of Steve, or find someone in leadership. The safety committee is always looking for new bodies, new help. So a couple other things as we go through. Rough to Ready, there's been 53 students so far. Sponsorship, Dwayne, do you have anything to report?
I'm not. Am I on? Okay, sorry. The only thing I got really is that, as we talked, earlier this month, we're going to try and start having a door prize and see if we can't bring some more people in. I think, I'm sorry, Jim, what did you say? 860 members, and they're all here tonight. So it's kind of crowded in the parking lot. it'd be nice to see some of those people here in the room. That's it.
Yeah, if you're watching at home, I know there's a few of you. We'd love to see you back, and pass the word. Another thing that Dwayne always likes to remind us: if you do smile.amazon.com and you search for it's the way that Amazon gives to charitable organizations. You can search for Kansas City Woodworkers Guild as your charity of choice, and 1% of your purchase comes back to the guild. And we have made a few dozens dollars on that over the last couple of years, maybe as getting close to $1,000. So it's it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed the guild a whole lot, except that $1,000 is better than nothing, right? I think we would all agree with that. That's a couple tanks of gas, maybe. So I think that is the next thing we have is our special interest groups. We call them SIGs. So do we have things going on? Do we have, Dan, do you want to say anything about the Carver SIG?
Okay, our carving SIG meets on the 4th Tuesday of every month, and it involves traditional carving, power carving, and then pyrography. And we have had people come in. You got any questions about wood carving, or you want to accomplish something, let me know. I'm going to be working on wings on a Peregrine Falcon myself, but there'll be others that are working on other things. So we'll love to see you.
Awesome. And if you all haven't seen Dan's work, you're going to see some at the show and tell. It's interesting. Last month we had a really quick meeting because we had essentially zero show and tell. And tonight we have some amazing pieces, so I'm looking forward to that. So one of the reasons we're moving quickly through this agenda. The CNC SIG, anything to report? That is every third Tuesday of the month at 6:30. Ed, do you have anything to bring up?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody that has any interest in the CNC to join us next Tuesday night at 6:30 in the library. Currently, the plan is that we'll have a show and tell. So if you've done something with the CNC, bring it in. I've got a stool that I had made using the CNC, and we'll be talking about that. And then if time allows, we're going to get on the machine and make a little sawdust. So I would encourage anybody that has any interest to come in and explore it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. The next, Rob, hand tools. Do you want to discuss what's going on? I know there was a flyer going around. Hold on. Let's get your microphone so we can hear you online.
The fourth Sunday, that is June 26th, we're going to talk about some simplified joinery. We did do dovetails and whatnot. We're going to take a step back, and it's going to be rabbets and dados and grooves, and that's all going to be cut by hand. So if you're interested in doing that, show up fourth Sunday, 2 to 4.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Scroll Saw SIG meets the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. I don't believe I see John tonight. Oh, John is here. John, do you have? I'm sorry about that. Do you have anything else to add? Okay, sorry about that. I didn't notice yours over there. And then laser engraver SIG, which is Curtis here? I don't see Curtis, so Mike McCauley and Curtis are the laser champions. You're going to see some of that laser work on at our show and tell. I see it over on the table, but they meet the fourth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. So we have a lot of different special interest groups. It's and if you can think of something that you think would be worthwhile, you can suggest it or even start a special interest group. Because if you think you have some like-minded people that really want to come focus in on something, that you're really passionate about, we'd welcome that. Now it's kind of a fun time. If Jim, you want to come up, and if you have show and tell, if everybody could go over and get prepared to come in and talk about your work. We have some amazing pieces tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Who wants to come first? Who wants to come first? Who raised their hand? All right. Yeah, here. Take this.
All right, my name's Todd Sanders. I could show you this, but I just want to maybe more share this and tell about it. Who was at the meeting a couple months ago? We talked about safety. Was that January or February, Chris? Yeah. So what I'd done, my shop is about 200 feet from my house, and so that did cause me to do a little bit of thinking. If I got hurt down there, my cell phone coverage isn't great. What would I do? No one would hear me yell, scream. And I had done a little bit of thinking about it. I didn't have all the things that she had in her pack that she presented that night, but I had some things there, and it caused me to think about what would I do. And so I don't know if anyone else can relate to me on this. This was a Christmas gift to myself, because that's the way I can make sure I get things that I want, is I make sure. So this marking knife, I'm not sure who's used a marking knife. It took my accuracy and joinery to a new level. They're fantastic. This is great. I'd recommend the guy I bought it from. He turns these. This is actually ebony. It's beautiful. It's not dyed wood. It really is ebony. It's beautiful. So use it for a few months. And this was since our last meeting last month. It was about 3 weeks ago. I also wear this heavy leather apron when I work in my shop, and it's got a pocket for everything. It's great. So this is getting to a safety feature. Maybe some of you can understand. I think the reason I want to share this is because I think we get caught up in thinking about what are the things that, like, what are the scary tools, like you see things happen on, like table saws or router, things like that you think are the things that are most likely to get hurt on. We don't think about the things that are fairly mundane, right? Or the things that you do repetitively that you don't really give much thought to, right? So this is partly a thank you to the woman being here that made me stop and think about this in January. I had this in my apron and hadn't used it, I don't think, recently at the moment. It was just sitting in this front pocket. And I reached down underneath one of my work benches to reach something, and I came up and I caught this on the bottom of the workbench. And it went right through the leather apron, and it went about that deep into my chest. And it's stuck there. You see, like in a movie when people like do some sort of dramatic, removal of some blade into somebody. It's kind of that way. I mean, actually, I looked down at myself, and this thing is sticking out of my apron, and I could feel it hurt. It didn't feel good, obviously. And I pulled the apron off, and there wasn't much blood. And it made me think, like, okay, you've heard before, should you remove a blade? Like, that's when you start thinking about those things. And it's actually, I could show you, this could be show and tell, I could show you the incision, you don't want to see it. But thankfully, it's a new blade. It's small, it's pretty surgical insertion. But I got things ready. It made me, I was in a mode of being thoughtful of it. Got some towels. My thought was, do I want to run up to my house, which is 200 feet away, and with this thing sticking out of my chest, like, what if I fell? It was dark. So I made the split decision, no, I'm going to remove it. So I carefully removed it, and it's gory, but it actually took a little bit of force to actually pull it out. And it was embedded not quite an inch into me. And at that point, blood starts coming out. I put a compression on it. The person who was most upset about it was my daughter. She convinced me that this was totally foreseeable, and which is kind of my point, is that think about the things that you do that you think that's not a big deal. This is a routine I've done all the time. Is there a possibility for things that don't seem that dangerous to you to introduce a safety issue? She convinced me that I should not be keeping this anywhere near my heart when I'm working on myself. So now I've got to find a new place to keep it. But I just thought it was interesting. Well, maybe not interesting. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, but just to share with everybody that it is important. Think about safety, even for goofy things in your shop. That shouldn't be a way for you to be getting hurt. And we have enough ways to get hurt with things like table saws, right? So just wanted to share, just keep in mind, like things like this can be a reason to still be thoughtful for what you're doing.
Any questions about that?
Yeah, yeah. I got a remark. I dropped a very sharp pair of scissors on a foot. Went through a neoprene boot and got stuck in my foot. And of course, cleaned it up. Went to the hospital. And the very first question they asked was it spousal abuse? Not
And
whether
you
I had a
said
tetanus
yes.
shot. Not whether I. Oh no, I'm not that stupid.
How many people have stuck a pencil in their back pocket and got in the vehicle and punctured the seats? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. That was the best safety message we've had in a long time. Thanks. All right.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
I've been learning to scroll saw. Oh, it's done on the laser. Okay, John. Mr. Tegler, it's done on the laser. So I bought the designs from a shop on designbundles.net. I got 5 designs for $12.50, and these are what they look like. These painted ones here, this is all shades of gray, if you can all see that. That's going to go down to Florida to a friend's house who have shades of gray in their house. This colorful one here is the colors were picked by my granddaughter, and she even told me what layer gets what color. And so, the pink one is on top, of course. And then her brother, my grandson, he didn't like some of the colors, so this is his right now until he picks out his colors. But I've got these other 2 here. The compass is going to a friend who he and his wife just bought a 40-foot sailboat, and they're taking captaining lessons so they can do charters in the Caribbean. Get certified for that. I'm going to engrave on the back of it. Hopefully you'll find your way home. But this is what I've done on the laser. And this is all 1/8-inch Baltic birch. I did learn one thing about the finishing on these, that if you are going to put a water-based finish on it, it's a good idea to pre-raise the grain and sand it off before you laser it, because it's a bitch to raise the grain and sand these little things. It's a bitch. So, it's a real pain in the ass to try to sand these little tiny pieces. So pre-raise the grain first and then laser it. So.
How many hours do you think you have in just one of these?
Oh, in one of them? There's 10 pieces in this one, and it takes an hour and 15 minutes to cut all 10.
All 10?
All 10.
So you can do one in about 10 minutes?
I can do, what it does is these are laid 3 up on a sheet. Mm-hmm. It's 10 by 30, the piece of plywood I'm using. And these are 9 inches, and so it'll do all 3 of those, and I go into the next 3 layers and the next 3 layers. These ones that have 9 layers, it takes just right at an hour to do. Okay. And that even includes, because they even give you the file for the solid back. So that's all cut, and that way it's all the same size.
So what's the final destination of where are they going to end up as?
Well, these will all be framed. I'll frame them with glass, and they'll go to Florida and all that. So
okay, so they're gifts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now some I'll make some to sell. I might make some up for the Santa's workshop in December.
Okay.
So
very good. Any questions about this?
And the neat thing about these files is that they're scalable. And so the file is originally 8 by 8 inches. These are 9 by 9, but I can make them as big as the laser will let me print them. And the same file I can use on the CNC machine as well, just with a few tweaking on that. So you could really do some big designs if you wanted to. Because I thought about this one here, like over the top of a door, even.
So tell me, as a purist.
Yeah.
Is this really woodworking?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not building furniture like I'm accustomed to,
Yeah.
but it's something different and fun. And,
Okay.
yeah, and my my grandkids, they like to look at the stuff, and so.
Do your grandkids participate in
No,
doing this?
well, they did help me pick out the designs online. They saw
Okay.
the designs they liked, and they picked that out. So I bought those files.
Did they help you with the programming?
No, it's done. The program is done.
Okay.
You just import it in when you're in the software.
Oh, so you buy the programming?
Well, you buy the file, the electronic
Okay.
file. Yeah, and so I got 5 of them, 5 files for $12.99.
You're getting farther away from woodworking all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but I mean, we say the same thing about CNC. Is that really
Yeah.
woodworking?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. You'll see a great example of it.
Questions? Thanks, Greg. You're welcome. Awesome. Hi, Ed.
Sorry. This is the non-purist woodworking here. This is CNC.
No.
Yes.
No, come on.
No, not all of it. I did use the planer and the joiner for my glue up,
Okay.
but the rest of it was CNC. So,
I'm impressed.
including the dovetails,
How did you turn this? How did you turn the thread
very carefully,
on the CNC?
a number of times to get it right.
Yeah. On the
Yes, it
CNC?
was done on the CNC.
Okay.
And the thread inside the nut was done on the CNC, as well as the dovetails.
Okay. I'm sorry. I got to be convinced. Yeah. Did you do the finish on the CNC?
No, I did that on the workbench at home. So
Okay. So this is made out of maple and cherry?
no, hard maple. That's all
Oh, it's
maple.
all hard maple?
Yes. Yep.
And what kind of a finish did you put on this?
It's boiled linseed oil, and it hasn't quite dried yet, or hasn't quite cured. It's still a little bit tacky.
Solid boiled linseed oil? You
Yeah.
just took it right?
Yeah.
You didn't cut it or anything?
No. Just rubbed it in with a 800 grit sandpaper.
Okay. What's the final destination? What's it going to be used for?
I think somebody's going to put their seat in it.
Could you be a little more specific? A
Well-
little more general.
Okay. Actually, I had no need for it, except to prove to myself that I could do it. And it was just a challenge. And
Very good.
thank you. I had talked with my wife several times about it at home, and she just would kind of nod her head and say, yeah, okay. And finally, whenever I had it all glued up, I took it home, and I walked in the house. She was sitting on the sofa, and she said, oh, that's so cute. I like that. That'd make a good plant stand. So I think I've got a plant stand.
Okay.
Oh. Does that help, Chris? Or all right.
So, did you have to program that on the CNC machine?
I bought a file that has the basic design, but then I changed the design, and then I had to do all of the tool paths myself. It doesn't come with tool paths. You have to do them. You have to figure them out. So just from all I got was just a sketch of the parts.
Okay.
So
Question.
The surface prep, how does the finish come off? How does the wood surface come off the CNC?
yeah, he's wanting to know how it comes off the CNC. It depends on one of the settings that you can change in your program. The closer you have with each pass of the bit, the smoother it is. But to sand just the surface of the seat, this surface, probably 10 minutes to get it down to 220. So, and that was by hand. I didn't use a random orbital or anything on it. One of the challenges.
The question was, how did he get the threads even?
One of the challenges that I had was that I did not have the tailstock end of the turning center exactly level with the headstock end, and as a result, to exaggerate, I ended up with a cone, and so the nut would fit real well on one end of it, and it would bind up on the other end. I was only off about 15 thousandths, 20 thousandths, but the tolerances were close enough that became a challenge. So I think there were probably 5 or 6 attempts to get the spindle correct. I finally learned enough about how to adjust for that to get it. So,
Any other questions?
yes. There's a router bit that I use that has two 45-degree cutting edges, or excuse me, two 90-degree cutting edges on opposite sides of the shaft of the shank, and the CNC just spins it down in, and it cuts it right out. Yes. No, they're actually laminated. There's 3 layers. I did that so that if one layer happened to fail, there'd be 2 more layers sitting there. I was afraid that I'd get a fracture in one layer of the, if I had just one layer, I was afraid I'd get a chip out.
Are both of these threaded?
Yes.
The dies threaded?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Thanks, Ed.
Didn't mean to do this, George.
Hi, George.
Hello. Hello, I'm George Rexroad, and I like making puzzles. What's unique about these 2 puzzles here is that Mark from American Walnut was making platters and stuff like that, and he said that this was too thin for him to do anything with. And most of the time, the frames are just squares or rectangles, whatever you want to call it. And I took upon myself to keep the live edge on it. And that was probably the hardest thing, was to cut the plywood that's on the back so that it fit. And then I got it close, and then I had to sand. But making these puzzles are fun. And whenever I see Mark again, I'm going to tell him that he can have the wood back.
So, the sap wood on this was all one piece, and you just...
It was all one piece. I cut it right here so that I had to have the 2 puzzles, but it was just one plank.
Okay. What are you going to do with these?
I'm going to give them to Mark.
Oh, okay.
So,
did you put a finish on this?
No, I do not put a finish on any of my puzzles for multiple reasons. Is that some finishes are hazardous to people, and not only that, like let's say I painted one white, that people won't want white; they'll want it some other color. Where if I just leave it without any finish on it at all, they can do whatever they want to with it.
Okay. Questions? Very good, George. That's really unique. Thank you. Okay.
There you go, Jimbo.
That mine?
No.
Oh, okay. You want to talk about it?
I can.
Okay.
Okay. This is an attempt to learn a little bit more about power carving. This is a pair of cardinals, a male and a female, and learned a lot of stuff with this. Number one is that if I'm going to make habitat, kind of like this branch or whatever you want to call it, you want to do that before you start carving the birds. It's a lot easier to do that way. This is the same stuff that I brought back in, was it last month or the year before, 2 months ago. It didn't have any paint on it, and it didn't have any feet on it. And so I got it finished up and thought I'd bring it in.
So did you took the class from Dan Rubio?
I took a couple of classes from Dan, yes.
Mm-hmm. So
not on this, but
mm-hmm. So you're traditionally a traditional furniture maker. Have you gotten into carving much more?
A little bit more. Actually, the problem, Jim, is that you get so that your body doesn't work as well as it should.
That's not happened to me.
No, it hasn't, huh? What's this lip?
I got made in Japan stamped right back here, buddy.
But a few years ago, I was not building furniture and saying, it's just getting harder and harder to do all the time. What am I going to do? And so I was convinced by a carver somewhere that I should get some power carving tools and go at it. It's expensive, and I was very hesitant to do it. And I mentioned it to my daughter one day. I said, I don't know whether I'm going to do this thing at all. And she looks at me and says, Dad, if you don't like to do it, I'll sell the damn stuff on eBay. So I stuck with it, and this is kind of what it's turned out to. One thing I had thought of doing was actually extending the habitat that would be mounted on the base as well. And with this one, I had enough curves and stuff in there. I didn't really want to spoil the shape of things. So it stayed with a slab of walnut that was routed on a router table very carefully. Because if you look at it very close, 90% of that is in grain. And it wouldn't take very much to just rip the whole damn thing out. I was raising the router bit up about 1/28 a rotation around there. So it was several times around to get that profile and have it smooth enough that you could say it's smooth.
I got a couple of dents in the wall in my shop from those getting away.
Yeah.
Any questions about this? Yes, sir.
Is that all cut out, each cardinal one piece of wood, or did you make the tail separate and slide it in?
Come on. One cardinal male, another cardinal female, habitat separate. And then these are mounted on this habitat.
So the tail is all one solid piece?
The tail is all one solid piece in this particular one. The one that's coming up behind me, that's not the case. The tail is put in afterwards. But no, this is one solid piece. Well, except for the feet. The feet came in last.
Any other questions?
Vaulting birds on what kind of wood are the birds?
These birds are carved with basswood. Other one we use are tupelo. So, and then the walnut base. So, but yeah, basswood.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Nice job. Wow. Hey, Ryan, are you going to do any of that in the future?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to see it. Look forward to it. You're on.
Okay, I'm on. My name's Dan Rubidoux, and I'm a bird carver. And I'm going to be introducing a class that's going to come up. We're putting it together right now. We're looking at starting July 24th. It's 2 hours on Sundays from 4 to 6. And it will be involved in carving a paraquin falcon, and this is what we'll be carving. When I take people wherever they're at, there's no experience is necessary. I take people wherever they're at, and I move them along to be able to get the basic knowledge and skill set to be able to do this. And there's some things on here that cannot be written in a book. I've got to show you. And so what I do is I open the class for 4 people, and I carve the bird there with you. So all you got to do is just do what I do. Now, if you want to do something different, that's okay. But I would suggest just do what I do and step through this. And the class, I can't say it's going to be done in 6 weeks or 12 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever. However long it takes to accomplish the carving. And sometimes it varies and what goes on. And to illustrate that, these are primaries. And this particular wood is out of holly. The bird itself is out of basswood, and the bird we'll be carving will be out of basswood. I could also do it in Tupelo. I show how to paint in oil. Lots of people paint in acrylic. Not a problem with that. That's good. I paint in oil, and there's certain reasons why I do that. But you can paint it whichever way you want it. And we also get into things like this. This is called color mapping. Before we attempt to paint this bird, we color map it. So we're always thinking ahead of where we want. And so that's what I'll be doing, and that's what's coming down the tube. And every class I've ever had, I've enjoyed it. I enjoy the guys, and we just have a good time. So that's it.
Questions?
Oh,
when's the class again?
It'll be the 24th of July. We start 24th. One other thing I got to tell you. I supply all the wood, all the paint, all the materials. And the reason I do that, if I say bring a brush, bring the wrong brush. You know, if I ask for, so I just make sure there's some very specific supplies that need to be done to do this. I supply all that except for one, and that's called a micromotor tool. And that is a tool that is expensive. It runs at 40,000 RPM, clockwise or counterclockwise. I've been carving a lot of years, and I'm on the second one. The first one, I beat the hell out of it. And I bought it for $600 and sold it for $400. They hold their value, but you cannot do this type of work without the right tool. Now I'm going to be at the carving SIG coming up. If you want to come in and talk to me about it, I'll show you the tool. I'll let you handle the tool, but that is the one thing that you will need. So it'll be all written up and where you get it and all kind of stuff in the write-up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I saw a paraquin falcon the other day, about a week ago, down at Corporate Woods. Okay.
I'm Tom Smoller, and this is my reproduction of a 1765 corner chair. Original by John Goddard. So mine's made out of cherry. The original was mahogany.
Okay, so
And it was not done on the CNC or the laser.
I was just about to ask that. So this is all cherry. This is all
Yes,
hand carved.
everything is cherry.
This is all hand carved.
It doesn't happen any other way.
Okay, I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah,
So I
suppose
asked.
that's true.
And the okay, did you do the upholstery yourself?
Yes, that's a slip seat, so it just pops out, and that's real leather. This was the most flexible lever. I had another piece, but it was too stiff, and I couldn't get the wrinkles out of there. So this one was the best piece I could find that was flexible enough, and I still didn't quite get the wrinkles out. But
Tell us how you built the splats.
the splats were nested in a 2-inch thick piece of cherry. So back to back, and just, you cut them and then smooth them, and then use the jigsaw to cut out the profile, and then you have to carve a little bit on the fronts.
Did you actually use a jigsaw or a scroll saw?
Yeah, scroll saw.
Okay. And then how did you split them? Or you split them first?
Well, I had a pattern.
Okay.
And I made it, and then on the bandsaw, I cut the S curve,
Mhm.
and then there were two of them were back to back.
And the joint that you have for the
There's
bottom and the top of the splat,
tendons.
they're tendons?
Tendons, mortise and tendons.
Okay.
So, yeah, everything is done pretty much traditionally.
Okay, now, how did you get this consistent color in the cherry?
Actually, a lot of it came from the same board. That's
Okay.
the first thing. I mean, all
How big was that
all the
board?
thick stuff did.
Okay, how big was that board?
Pretty good size. I mean, the legs.
Come on, pretty
the-
good size doesn't cut it.
Well, the legs are all 3-inch thick stuff,
Okay.
right? All the way up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
So you need 3 of those pieces, and then the front. These front rails were the 3-inch thick too. Back rails were only 2 inches thick. That was the only 4-quarter stuff was at the
And
top.
this is a mortise and tenon joint
Yes.
up at the top of this?
Yes.
This is an extraordinary piece of work. Wow.
Actually, the biggest challenge was making the drawings off of the picture because there's nothing straight. So,
Okay.
I think
so-
I could get closer to it if I did it again, but it looks pretty nice, I think.
So what kind of a finish did you put? What's
It's
the finish?
shellac, a lot of coats of shellac, and in the middle there I'd use a oil glaze stain as a glazing to kind of give it some depth, age look, and then some brown wax at the end.
Is this going to stay in your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like Ed. I did it for the challenge, and so it's
Awesome.
My wife wasn't too sure about it, but now she likes it. But it's not a plant
So-
stand.
Okay, so you got any idea the amount
I
of time?
thought from the pictures it looked like it was going to be a very uncomfortable chair to sit in, but actually it's very, very
Really?
comfortable.
Wow. Do you have
It
any?
was a lot of
plans
fun to build.
Do you have any plans to do anything like this in the future?
I don't know what my next project is. We got some home improvement projects next, so the next couple of months are going to be.
Don't
tied
try
up.
breadboards.
No.
Okay.
So.
All right. Questions? Yes, sir.
Who's talking?
you're-
I can't hear it. Yeah, a bunch of, about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 coats of shellac first, because a lot of end grain, so you need to get it pretty smooth. And then I just put oil, a glaze, or what do I want to say, a gel stain on there, and wipe as much off of as you can. It's going to stay in the crevices and give some depth to the ball and claw, and it's a dark gel stain, and then a bunch of more coats of shellac.
So
and then it's going to get a whole lot darker as it ages.
So
I
what-
might set it out in the sun.
What kind of gel stain did you use? What
I
color?
use Old Masters,
Okay.
but I mean, I think anything
Was
would have
this
worked.
a cherry gel stain?
No, I think it was. It might have been like a dark mahogany might have
Okay.
been the color of it, but it's just you know, you want something dark is all.
Okay.
Tom, can they watch you through this build on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, there's 5 episodes of building this. I've been trying to kind of get less detailed on those. So there's only 5, I don't know, 30-minute episodes on building this.
Extraordinary piece of work. Wow. What's that?
What's the you?
Well,
what's
Tom
your-
Smoller or Papa's Workshop. I started at Papa's Workshop for my grandkids during the pandemic, and it's just kind of kept going
did you
afterwards.
Get the T-shirts from Papa's Workshop on them?
I should do that.
Yeah, they make one with Papa's Workshop on it.
We have the grandkids for a week in the summer, so we get in first part of July. We're going to do that, and we're going to make something. I haven't figured out what yet, but
Good. Any other questions? How long did it take you?
about 3 months. I'm retired, so I probably work on it, I don't know, 30, 40 hours a week, something like that. You know, when you're retired, you know, you get tired of doing it, go do something else.
Go take a nap.
Take a nap.
Yeah. A question over here? Okay. All right.
It was lots of fun.
Thank you. Awesome piece. That's it, right?
I got an addendum. That's what I got to say.
Okay.
I misspoke. That's not Peregrine Falcon. That's American Kestrel. I just misspoke. So, just to clarify for my conscience.
Good clarification. Thank you. So awesome show and tell. Appreciate everyone who brought those in. Tom, I still take a little credit with your period furniture now. Was your first ball and claw was one of my classes, so now you're putting me to shame. So nice work. That's it. That's now. It's time for our break. So I guess we're gonna have how about a 8 or 9 minute break. We've got the refreshments, and we're looking forward to the program. We'll come back and remember, there's raffle tickets in the back. We'll do the raffle right at the end of the break. So go buy some tickets and win some cool stuff. Thanks, everyone.
Our presentation today will introduce you to the requirements for the safe use of our Holtz-Hair 1265 Supercut Panel Saw. Hi, my name is Mike Jones, and welcome to another edition of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild's ongoing series of machine safety videos. Now, normally, our videos only cover the safety concerns of our machines. However, we're taking this opportunity to introduce you to how to use the Holtz-Hair Supercut Panel Saw. This saw is relatively easy and safe to use, but there are specific steps you need to master to use this saw. Remember, if you need assistance or guidance on the use of this machine or any other machine in the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild shop, you should seek out one of the on-duty foremen for assistance. To get started, first make sure the area around the saw is clear of any obstructions or obstacles that might interfere with your work. To the left and rear of the saw, you will find the power switch, which is a red rotary knob, and a compressed air supply valve, also with a red handle. Turn the power switch on and turn the air on. The air is on when you have the handle of the air valve running parallel to the supply line. If either of these steps are left out, that machine will not start. The Holtz-Hair Supercut Panel Saw is capable of cross-cutting or ripping stock up to 72 inches wide by 12 feet long. This saw is made for handling large 4x8 sheets of plywood. This panel saw eliminates the need to wrestle with a 4x8 sheet of plywood on our cross-cut or rip table saws, and the accuracy is every bit as great. To start, determine what is the best way to optimize your rip or cross-cut of your sheet goods. If you intend to rip the 8-foot length of your sheet stock, it's best to lay the sheet on its long side on the base track. You also have the ability to rip your stock on the mid-rail supports if you want to rip or cross-cut narrower stock. To cross-cut stock vertically, you can do so with stock up to 72 inches in size. First, ensure that the orange saw head is oriented for vertical cutting. The blade guard, which is the white portion of the saw assembly, will be vertical. You'll need to set the indexing bar into the stop that is marked at the top of the machine. This positions the saw to cut your vertical cut. Next, set the depth of your cut according to the thickness of your sheet stock. The scale on the side of the adjusting bar has a white scale that allows you to easily set that depth of cut. This also prevents the saw from cutting into the backing rack. Next, set the stop block to the width you intend to cut. Again, there is an easily accessible scale to set the width of your cut and position your stop block. By pulling down on the stop block at the appropriate width, this will lock your stop at your desired width. Pull your sheet stock to the left and set it against this stop block. Next, you will set the cut depth pressure wheel, which also has a scale showing the material thickness that you are cutting. This is adjusted by using the clamp lever at the end of the cut depth pressure wheel. By setting this correctly, this prevents you from cutting too deep and into the backing rack. The two black handles attached to the saw head should be disengaged by pulling out and pushing the saw head to the top of your stock in a position to start your cut. At this point, the white spring-loaded blade guard should only overlap the top of your stock by roughly 1 inch. Turn the saw on. That's the green button on the right. You engage the saw carriage by using the two black carriage handles and push in and pull down once you have the pressure wheel touching the face of your stock. Now pull down on the black handles, moving the carriage all the way down to complete your cut. When the cut is complete, release the pressure on the black handle so that the saw blade retracts away from the material and then turn the saw off. Return the saw head to your start position at the top of the sheet. Wait for the saw blade to stop rotating and then remove your cut-off material. If you have multiple cuts to make at that first dimension, move your stock to the previously set stop and repeat the steps that we just went through. If you have material you want to rip, place your sheet stock on the base track or fold down the mid-backing supports to raise your material to a more comfortable height. When ripping stock on the Holtz Hair Supercut Panel Saw, the rip cut goes from left to right. So you need to set your stop to the right side of your material. This will ensure that the material is held in place while you perform your rip cut. To orient the saw head for rip cutting, you will need to rotate the saw head. This is done by rotating the saw head counterclockwise to the horizontal position. Secure the locking lever back into that locked position by rotating it to the right. This is the lever with the black knob located under the saw. At this point, you'll need to make sure that the indexing bar is disengaged by lifting the bar on the right side of the saw head. At that top rail, you see the arrows indicating the détentes for that indexing bar. That bar will only lock down at those locations marked by an arrow. This indexing bar has to be released to do a horizontal rip cut. You will need to position the saw head at the proper point to make your rip cut. Again, using the vertical orange scale on the machine to set the width of your rip cut. Make sure that the 3-inch locking knob is turned to the right to lock the saw in place. This also engages the pneumatically controlled backing rack, and it will position itself so that the saw blade does not cut into the backing rack. What that does is that puts the blade in between the back rails and locks the saw in vertically. Turn the saw on with the green button on the right. Using the two black handles on the saw carriage, push in and engage the blade into your stock and push the assembly to the right. As you make your cut, be aware when you have cut approximately halfway into your total length of cut, insert a shim or a wedge in the already completed kerf. This helps support your material so that you can complete your rip cut and not pinch the blade and possibly damage your stock. Disengage the saw carriage and turn off the power with the red button. Return the saw carriage to the start position at the left side of the sheet. When the saw blade has stopped rotating, remove your cutoff piece. This is Mike Jones for the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. Thank you for watching.
Are we on, Chris? Are you there, Chris? Am I hot? Am I hot? Okay. Raffle table, people. Winning numbers. The last three digits of each of the prizes. Okay, the 1, 2, 3 block. Last three numbers 506. Push stick. Last three numbers 528. The enamel mug. Last three numbers 518. The hat in the turning tool roll. Last three numbers 527. Tape measure 504. The rudder bit set 508. The frame clamp set 487, and the honing the honing jig, the honing whatever 509. Check your numbers, match them up against the ones that are still sitting here, take your stuff and go. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thanks everyone. Hey, let's gather back in, wrap up your conversations. Let's give our attention to the program. If you're over there talking, come on back to your seats. Come on, guys.
Put him back. Put him back inside.
Appreciate that. We are really looking forward to our program tonight. So I don't know a ton about this. I'll let Elena do her own introduction. But from Culver Props in Rolla, Missouri, she's one of the last remaining wood airplane propeller makers out there, and we're excited to have you come and join us and show us how it's done. So come on up. Welcome, Elena.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me come. I'd like to go over a little bit about how I got into making propellers. That seems to be the first question everybody asks me. Then I'd like to kind of share a little bit about the process of how they're made. And then I would like to, if anyone has any questions, I actually love the question and answer part the most of the whole thing. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I want to make sure that I get all your questions answered, because that's really why I'm here, is to spread some propeller knowledge and make sure you guys get all your questions answered. So we got started. My grandpa was a crop duster here in Missouri, and this is actually a unique experience, because most of the time I talk to airplane people, and now I'm talking to woodworking people. So I had to reform my speech a little differently, because you guys are going to be interested in the little things that I love to talk about, but I don't normally get to talk about, because I mostly talk to airplane people. But so my grandpa was a crop duster here in Missouri, and to have your pilot's license, you have to have a medical license that goes with it. And he had a heart attack and lost his medical license. So therefore, he could not have a full pilot's license and fly the planes he had normally flown. But he did have a mechanical engineering degree from UMR, so he just decided to build his own airplane. They have a category called ultralights, and with ultralights, you actually do not have to have any kind of license. And we love to operate in the area of no rules. My family loves the no rule area. So we took that and ran with it. So Grandpa designed his own ultralight. He just took some soapstone, drew it out on the hangar floor, and my dad welded it. So we did all welded aluminum was our airplane. And it did great. He flew to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Oshkosh, Wisconsin is the largest air show in the United States. It's huge. You can find anything you want there. So he flew it up there, and someone said, that's great, but is that the best you can take off? Is that the best takeoff you can get with that thing? And so Grandpa went home, and he engineered, and he designed, and he came up with what was called a prop speed reduction unit. So we used an engine called a VW, and a direct drive VW engine can swing a 62-inch diameter propeller. Now, after you put Grandpa's reduction drive on there, you can swing almost up to a 96-inch propeller. And what that means is you can pull on a much larger column of air that'll give you a lot better takeoff and a lot better performance. So he goes back to Oshkosh, flies this little ultralight from Missouri to Oshkosh, back before radio, cell phones, any of that. Grandpa loved it. It was great. My dad was a nervous wreck. He had me, my brother, my mom, my grandma. He's getting the whole family up there, and Grandpa's just loving life, flying his airplane up there. Dad's nervous wreck. So anyway, we get there, and he has this redrive. He has this humongous prop on there, and he takes off, and he's just almost straight up. Gets back on the ground. The ground crew goes, "If you ever do that again, you're not allowed to do that," and gets onto him, and he goes, "It's okay, just had to do it once." And so we contacted Culver Propellers when Grandpa had this propeller made. It was a special design that he liked. He wanted the profile to be wide. He had certain parameters that he wanted, and they made it for him specifically the way he wanted it, which was great. So then after that, he called to order another one, and they said, "Well, we're out of business." And he said, "Okay, well, who'd you sell it to?" "Well, we didn't sell it to anybody." "Well, you just shut your doors, but I need that propeller." And they said, "No, we just shut the doors, we're done." And so he called my dad, and he goes, so they called him back and said, "Okay, would you sell us the propeller company? It's got to be better than just shutting the doors. We have this much money in our bank account. Is that enough? Would you take that to truck everything down from Pennsylvania and show us how to make props?" And they said, "Sure." So they put the whole prop shop in an 18-wheeler, brought it from there to Pennsylvania. And now, just by luck, my dad ran a gravel plant and dump trucks and had that whole thing, and he had just built a huge brand new shop. He had only moved dump trucks into half of it. So the other half became a prop shop. And just like that, we were prop makers. Dad and Grandpa and some help did it for a lot of years. They actually bought the company in 2000. I graduated high school in 2004. I went to college, and then I ended up just kind of sweeping up at the shop, going and getting them lunch, answering the phone, taking orders, things like that. Those were my jobs. And then it just, of course, all I just started doing more and more and helping out more. And Grandpa passed away in 2016, but he worked every single day at the shop until then. So in 2016, when he passed away, it kind of, my husband and I were sanding props, and my husband was only just doing it when I needed help. So we kind of went from having a lot of help and things like that to it kind of just being a little bit of chaos, really. But then my husband and my dad ended up taking jobs in concrete, and then myself and my grandma and my daughters were there, and we ran the prop shop. So that's how I got into it. So now I've had some help along the years, some people in, some people out, but I actually enjoy working by myself. So I'm the only one at the shop now, although I do have help. My husband drills my bolt patterns for me because they're very precise, and I hate precise work. I hate it. So and my husband does that part for me, but the rest of it I do myself. I have a lot of people that say, well, do you get treated differently being a woman in a male-dominated field? And said, no, but I sure wish I did, because I have to unload my lumber just like everybody else. So I'll go ahead and get into the process of how we make the props. I make about 120 a year. It's not a whole lot, but it takes 6 days to make them. So that's about how that goes. But I just start with 3/4 inch lumber. And we get our lumber from Liberty Hardwoods here in Kansas City. Do you guys use any of their stuff? Yeah. I use maple. That's my go-to. I do use some birch. And then I love to mix the birch and mahogany. And this is a good example, but you know, bigger props have multiple laminations. So when you start getting multiple builds up of laminations in maple and mahogany, they're really beautiful. And so, oh yeah, we have our lathe here. This is how they get cut. So anyway, I get 3/4 inch laminations. They plane them for me. I get them planed, no straight edge. And as long as I get like $500 worth, they will truck it down for free. Of course, they can't get down to my dad's shop because it's at his house. So I have to meet them at the interstate, and then I unload it into my truck, and then I bring it all down to the shop, and then I unload it into the shop. But I use maple. I have used some cherry before, but I generally like to stay with maple, birch, and mahogany. And then after I get all my boards, I have templates that I put down, and I'll trace out each individual board. And then I cut them out on the bandsaw. Some people ask why I don't glue them all up in a block, but that would just be physically too heavy for me to carry. I have to make a lot of adjustments for me to do it, but it's okay. So I cut out each individually, and then I glue them up. And the glue that I use is called it used to be called DAP plastic weldwood resin. Did anybody use that and notice that it went out of business? That they don't make it anymore? Well, they actually do still make it. If you Google if you Google DAP plastic weldwood resin, any of that stuff, you're not going to find it anywhere. But it's actually a uraformaldehyde, and so when you Google that, you can find that. But that took me a long time to find out, and I messed up. I worked with a lot of different glues trying to get to that point. They were all terrible. So the Cascafin resin, has anyone played with Cascafin resin? And the moisture content, you have to get the wood to use it. If you ever get the chance, don't. It's terrible. But this DAP plastic weldwood resin is actually just a powder that you mix with water, which is,
Is that boat glue?
I'm not sure if they do use that in boat making or not, but it is weather resistant and water resistant. So it's just a powder and water that you mix, and it is a nice brown color. So it looks good in my joints. This one I glued up with Tight Bond, and I normally do glue my non-airworthy decorative props up with Tight Bond. but I hate that glue line. I hate it so bad. So my glue is a 14-hour press time, actually. So I have a 20-minute pot life to glue the prop up and get it into the press. And then it goes into the press for 14 hours at 70 degrees at about 75 to 80 psi are the requirements for this glue. And it's stronger than your wood. So any prop strike that I've ever seen, your wood breaks before your glue joint. It's really great stuff. And it leaves a beautiful glue line also, which most people don't appreciate, but I knew you guys would appreciate. So I get that from CP Adhesives, actually. It's here in the US. So after I glue it up, I take it out of the press and it's just a big block. And then I'll go ahead and I will drill your center pilot hole and your end detachment points. These all have to be in an exact straight line. If I don't get them in an exact straight line, then my vertical balance is going to be off later on. Vertical balance is important. If they're not vertically and horizontally balanced, then they'll cause vibrations on the airplanes. So after I get these holes drilled, that's how it's attached to the lathe. And if you can see that in the videos, it's attached here. And the other half of the hub or of the prop is sticking out the other side. So when I put it in the lathe, I do a rough cut and just get most of the material off. And then I turn around, do a rough cut on the opposite side. And then I will come back and set the pitch. The pitch is the angle of the blade that you see here, and every airplane has to have a specific pitch for their engine and airplane combination. So I actually just make that by putting a little shim under the hub. So if it's setting in the press like this, I'll just put a little shim under here or under here if I need to take away or add more space, more angle of the blade. And then it'll get its final cut. And then after the final cut, it's all hand sanding. It's all hand work from this point on. So I have templates for all props have a bolt pattern, a specialized spread here that fits on their engine. Then I pick a face plate and I make a perfect circle here and then blend it out to the blade. And then I do all this work on a bandsaw. And I have some YouTube videos on that. Probably my favorite YouTube video to make is my bandsaw videos. So I'll do that all by hand. And I do get a lot of comments because I leave my guard up really high on my bandsaw. And the reason is because if I catch any of these parts on my guard or any of that, then you have to take your eye off the blade to see where you're caught and to get uncaught. And if you take your eye off the blade, that's when you're in trouble. So I always have a high bandsaw or have a high guard, and I always get in trouble for it on YouTube. So if you guys go to my YouTube channel, don't comment on my high guard, okay? So I cut all that out on the bandsaw, cut the ends off on the bandsaw, and then I will take a drum sander and blend the hub to the blade here. It took me a long time to be able to do that. It's hard to get a nice, smooth blend from that perfect circle. And another challenge that I have is that this circle has to stay perfect. They're gonna put their crush plate on the front of this, and their crush plate is perfect. So if you didn't sand this perfect when they put their crush plate on, they can see exactly all the ways that you have messed up. Yeah. So there's some videos of my drum sander. Apparently they don't make it anymore, but everybody asks me about it because it's really great. It really is a great piece of equipment to have. So after I get all that sanded out, then I start sanding on my blades. And the machine does a really good job. It takes it down. Now I do have a lot of people that ask me why I don't do this on CNC. But it would take a lot. I have had CNC people come to my shop and they will say, oh no, you can't beat what you're doing. But until people really understand the whole process of how you make a propeller, they will tend to tell me that I need a CNC machine. But generally speaking, I'd have to have a new program every time that I change 1 inch of pitch. And I'm in experimental aviation, and experimental aviation means you can really put any engine on any airframe. So I very rarely build two propellers that are exactly the same. So that would mean a brand new program almost every single time. And I also have the freedom to make adjustments on my pitch, or I have adjustments on the lathe. I can cut this pattern thinner, I can cut it thicker. I can cut it short, I can go up 10 inches of pitch, I can go down 10 inches of pitch. So even though most people feel like my lathe is an archaic piece of equipment, it's actually very versatile and does exactly what I need it to do. So when I sand my blade, I use Dynabrade orbital sanders. Does anyone use Dynabrades? They're great. They're really great. They have lowest vibrations, and the noise is way down there, and they're very lightweight. The thing with sanding on this surface here, up and down, is, boy, that can make your arms hurt. So I looked for the lightest orbital sander I could find, but I start with an 80 grit sandpaper, and I can take most of this out. I used to use a belt sander to take all these lines out, but I spent so much time taking the lines of the belt sander out that I just went ahead, and the company's like, oh yeah, it'll take it. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. So I just put 80 grit sandpaper on there and go to town. And it actually takes it out pretty nicely. And then I will, after I get it, all the lines out, get it mostly shaped, I'll go ahead and start balancing. Like I said, these have to be perfectly balanced. We're not talking that looks good. We're talking if I put, like, if it's out of balance just a little bit, I'll put a counterbalance on it. And if I put a Post-it note on it, well, that's not good enough. If it's a Kleenex, that's not good enough. It needs to stay there. It just needs to just sit there perfectly, vertically and horizontally. That's when it's acceptable. And I do not go back and rebalance it after I put varnish on it, because I do get it perfect the first time. So after I balance it, then I put varnish on it. Varnish is my least favorite thing. I hate it. I mean, I can't, it's the worst part. Paint, drips, it's my worst part. But I'm working on getting better. So I was looking around at everybody's projects going, what'd you do over there? Because that's my least favorite part. But a good finish is definitely needed for these props. A wooden prop can actually last 10, 15 years if it's taken care of well. So that is just about how it's done. Does anyone have any questions?
Did they ever ask you to do both props? Do they ever ask you to do both props?
I have done airboat props before. If a wooden propeller gets into water, it actually almost acts like sandpaper, and it eats away your leading edge. But I have made them for airboats before. My dad likes to make airboats, so I make them for his airboat. And if you're running the airboat and you kind of get the tip in the water, you get to refinish it yourself.
Yes, ma'am. What FAA or AOPA regulations do you have or have to follow?
Good question. None. I am actually in experimental aviation. I am not a certified propeller. There are certified propellers, and certain airplanes do have to have certified propellers. But how you get a propeller certified, I mean, it's just books. And even big companies that have lots of propellers certified, it would take them 4 to 5 years almost to get a propeller certified. I downloaded the book and I read through a lot of it, and you have to do a lot of tests and things like that. One of them was even, you have to throw a bird through it so you know how it reacts when it has had a prop strike. And that's when I said, no thanks. So we stay experimental, no rules. That's our favorite.
I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
One, do you brush or spray the varnish?
I spray.
Okay. And what type of varnish brand is that? Is it a conversion or?
So I called a company. Actually, funny story. Instagram is wonderful. And I had somebody on Instagram go, we love your page. Everything's great. Your varnish is terrible. Thank you. Appreciate it. I said, so what would you suggest I do differently? Because he paints multi-million-dollar homes. So I said, what would you recommend? He said, well, I would recommend you call a company called Ilva Klima, and they're out of Pennsylvania. So I called them, and they gave me their tech, and their tech goes, wow, I've done everything but propellers. And he gave me a sealer that I use, and it's just numbers. I mean, feel free to email me, and I will email you the numbers that they send me. But it's a antifungal, antimicrobial sealer, and then I put an acrylic top coat on that. And the acrylic top coat is the anti-scratch, something like what they put on tabletops. So I don't really know what it is. They said it was the best, and they sent it to me, and I use it.
Elena, tell them how big of props you make. Looking at that small one up there is kind of an illusion. I don't think the fellows realize how big of props you actually make.
So my biggest prop that I make is 103 inches. My normal size prop is going to be 74 inches. My niche, and the friends I brought with me they have, actually Mark would be one of our first customers. We had he has a World War I airplane, and we love World War I airplanes because they have so much character, and we can customize the props to specifically fit their World War I props. So that's probably my favorite area of aviation is the World War I replicas, and how detailed I can get to matching the prop exactly to the ones that were made in World War I. So when you go to full-scale airplanes, and I've made some for some museums, even old Rhinebeck, because like I said, I'm one of the last ones that'll do it. I'm one of the last ones that has equipment that'll do it. Everyone else does have CNCs, and they're not going to make a one-off program for these museums. So my favorite part of aviation is making larger props for World War I replicas, exactly the way they need it to look for their airplane, for an exact airplane they're trying to replicate from that era, because you just get to keep a little piece of flying aviation alive. So that really is my favorite thing to do.
You talk about your templates.
Yes, so I have about 300 templates. Now you can understand why CNC would be so hard. I have 300 that I can pick from. I have them all in order. You can see there by diameter, and then by pitch, and then by rotation. And so whatever people need, I just go up there and I put that top part in the lathe. I put my blank in the bottom. But they came with a company, but I also make some. Like I said, a lot of people will send me a picture and say, I'm going to make this. I want it to look exactly like this, and I make it work. I can make them from scratch. I actually just take a prop that's very close with the same pitch, the same rotation, and the same diameter, and then I just put Bondo on it until it looks like it needs to, and then I put that in the top and make my pattern off the bottom. I'll make a pattern off a pattern off a pattern, but eventually I get to where I need to be.
You mentioned how long these can last. What is it that wears out first?
Generally speaking, they hit something. But there'll be a point in time where I can't refinish it anymore. They'll thin out a little bit from rock chips and things like that, and as I sand them out, there'll be a point in time where you just can't, there's no material, not enough left to give. Their tips will get too thin. You do see cracking at the tips sometimes. Sometimes it'll be because they've been left out in some moisture, and you'll see some separation at the hub. It's not necessarily it is a delamination, but not a delamination like people think, like the whole thing just peels off. It's just, you can just see a little bit of separation in the hub there. Those are generally the tips, and the hub is where you're going to see. But most of the time, they'll last 10, 15 years easily.
So what's the problem with the CNC machine?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about them, and I don't want to. I am.
Is this one you brought for a real airplane?
No, this is a decorative. This is actually something that would be, I think they made them for drone props, but these are just decorative. Actually, these are harder to make than the big ones because that little part right in here is so tight to get my sander in to blend that. It's a pain. I like the bigger ones better.
So what are the smallest ones you make?
36 inches. I won't make anything smaller than that.
Okay.
Is that your bandsaw there in the picture?
In the background, yeah, my Grizzly bandsaw. I saw you guys have a lot of Grizzly stuff. Oh, they make the best tools. Grandpa wouldn't spend money on anything, but he'd spend money on that.
Now you start with 80 grit sandpaper. How far do you go down?
I'll go to 220 on bare wood, but then my varnish guy did say I can't go anything over 320 or the varnish will just fall off of it because of the curves and everything. So I can't go anything over 320 or my varnish will just melt off. That did fix a lot of my problems, so going to the 320 fixed a lot of my drips.
So I'm going to fly my plane from Alaska to the Amazon. Are you going to finish it any different because of the extremes?
You're probably going to need a metal leading edge on that. I don't do the meat. I can hook you up with some people, though.
Are there any advantages of wood over aluminum or fiber composite or carbon fiber?
Yes, good question. A wooden prop generally will absorb more vibrations, and on some of your ground adjustable props, the way that they adjust the pitch is they'll take it and they twist it to get the pitch that they want, but that doesn't leave you a consistent pitch down the entire blade. So by having a nice, good, fixed pitch wood propeller is going to absorb your vibrations a little bit better. It's probably going to pull a little harder. You have a more consistent pitch. And if you ever have a prop strike, a wooden prop will break and save your crankshaft. If you have a metal prop, it's probably going to bend your crankshaft. So wooden props will save your crankshaft. And they look better. They do have character. So, Mark?
How do you know how much pitch, how long, and all that?
Good. So, diameter is usually defined by two things. Number one is going to be the airplane itself. Does it have any restrictions? Does it have ground clearance issues? Does it have a lot of the pusher configurations are limited to a shorter prop because they have a tail boom that they might hit. And the second thing is your tip speed. You can only have 800 feet per second on your tip speed before you really become inefficient. Actually 900 I believe is inefficient. 850 is super noisy. 800 you're really clear. So the first thing I do is put in the max RPMs of the engine so that I can determine what the tip speed will be at max speed. And then I give them as long of a diameter as I can, because the bigger column of air you pull on, the better performance you're gonna have. So that takes care of one. That's how I do the diameter. And the second thing for pitch, when I do pitch, so you measure it the last 2/3 of the blade, because that's where your prop does the most work. And I'll measure it here and it's gonna give me an angle. I take that angle and I put it into a formula and it'll say 9.5 tangent times pi times 25 is gonna give me a pitch of 26, let's say. So that's 26 inches of pitch. And that means for every single rotation of this propeller, your airplane is gonna go 26 inches forward. And that's how diameter and pitch. So I will take the cruising RPM and mile per hour of the airplane and put it into my prop pitch calculator, and it will give me the inches of pitch that it needs.
So many questions.
Good.
What's your degree in?
I have an associate's in business and a grandpa.
Grandpa, okay. Grandpas are cool.
They're the
there's
best.
a lot of them here. Do your props wind up being prototypes for metal, or do they go into mass production somewhere, or is it just?
Not that I know of.
I mean, you talk about you're in experimental aviation. what are you experimenting on and why?
Oh, good question. So aviation is broken into a lot of different categories. You have some airplanes that are certified and they have to go by a certain set of rules. But then the FAA made this little category where you can build your own airplane at home, and you can build it from a kit, or you can make your own design, and they call that experimental aviation. And it doesn't have nearly as many rules. So that is the area that I'm in. So there's a plane called a Pete pole. You build it yourself. You buy plans, you build it in your garage. It's made of wood, actually. You guys should try it. And I'll make you a prop. Vern will fly it for you. And so it's home builders, people who build their props there. A lot of ultralight props is what I do. So it's considered experimental because people are trying their own designs. People are trying to see if I mean, that's how we got started. Grandpa's airplane was straight out of his head. It was not out of any design book. It was not out of any, he did calculations in his book. He put soapstone on his concrete floor in his hangar, and we built it. No design, nothing proven. He just got in it and flew it. And that's experimental aviation. So that's my favorite. Like I said, no rules, and people just seeing what works and getting to be creative. And I mean, just like you guys do, I'm sure there's things you're like, let's see if it works. Kind of like that. So, but there are a lot of wooden airplane designs. There really are.
Question, you said you laminate on with 3/4 material?
Yes.
Is there any reason for that, or do you just like the way it looks, or why not solid?
By having laminates, I get to inspect more surface area of the wood, because it's really sad if you put something in there and find a knot in the center of it after all that hard work. So it lets me see more surface area of the propeller as I glue it up to make sure, because I mean, I can't have not one single crack, not one single knot, not one single, it has no defects in it.
If you get your stuff from Liberty, it has tons of knots, so.
If you smile at your salesman, no, probably doesn't work as well for you guys. No, actually, we've been using them for about 15 years, and I do get top A grade select. And fortunately, my patterns have quite a bit of shape to them. So most of the time, I can get around a knot or a ding. But I do have to say, I'm pretty hard on those guys, and I'm kind of glad I haven't met anybody in the lumberyard, because they probably wouldn't like me. But we've been doing business with them for about 15 years, and they are very, very good to me. So that's nice.
Tell us a little bit about Oshkosh.
Okay.
Do you test these propellers before they actually get used?
No, I don't. Nope. We have, 30 years of experience, and we just make them the same way every time. There are telltale signs, like if the building got too cold overnight, you'll see a glue separation, and then I know that one's no good. But in general, no, they just go out the door. They're not tested at all. Oshkosh is the world's largest air show. I've been going for about 30 years. Everything in aviation is there. Everybody in aviation is there. You can walk 10 miles a day, every day, and not see it all and not hear it all. I've been there for 30 years. I still miss stuff. There's no way you can take it all in. Even if you don't like airplanes, you will find stuff that you like there. The air shows are just phenomenal. They have night air shows and fireworks, and it's also the happiest place on earth for that week. And it really is, I call it my new year, because when you get back, you just are so excited. You're so excited, and so have so much thoughts and ideas and excitement. And they have, just everything airplane you could ever ask for. And there is a lot of woodworking in airplanes, really, overall. A lot of airplanes are made out of wood. The props are made out of wood. I do look very hard at when I judge in the ultralight and home built category, I'm a judge, and I go through and judge some of the airplanes and for their awards for that year. And when I see that people use wood, a lot of people will match the wood in their dash to even the wood on their propeller. They'll have me stain their propeller the same color as the inside of their dash. That's how, absolutely, and that's what I love. I love being able to give them that and be able to deliver that absolute custom prop because they put so much hard work into their airplanes. So.
Lots of creative thinking people there.
Yes, yes, you'll see it all at Oshkosh.
Who's your competition?
My competition, well, there's Prince Propellers, and they have a little droop tip thing that they add to the ends, a little droop tip, and it just kind of comes down like that. That's supposed to hold a little bit more air as they go through. Grandpa said that's crap, but he's gone now, so I can say that. But I know there's validity to it. He's been in business for a very long time, and he's a very good prop maker. He does make a gorgeous propeller, but Prince Propeller would be one of them. Cato Propeller makes an excellent propeller. Both those companies paint their props, so you wouldn't necessarily know that they're wood. And then there's a Props Inc. that used to be in business, but I don't think I'm not sure anymore. Anyway, I have a few, but not too many.
How do we find out more about how you do what you do? Is there a website? Is there, not that we all have airplanes, but you're kind of fascinating.
I have a YouTube, I have an Instagram, which is really my favorite, and I have a Facebook page.
I think you should mention Grandpa just a little bit more. He's in a famous place.
Yes. So my grandpa, he brought a new design to Oshkosh almost every year. So almost every year he'd bring something different. So that was our goal, was to bring something different every year and to just have something different to show for everybody. And he took a Generac generator engine and he converted it to airplane use, which is, again, what we call experimental aviation, an unconventional engine as an airplane engine and a reduction drive to put on it. And he won an innovation award at Oshkosh for that. And then after that, he went on to design his backyard flyer, which was a true ultralight with a swing wing. So the airplane wing, you could untouch one bolt and it just go around sideways, and it could store in your trailer just super easy. Actually, Vern just bought one. And he ended up being in the EAA Ultralight Hall of Fame. So we accepted that award for him after he passed away. So none of this would be possible without my dad or my grandpa or the foundation that they laid for our family and the fun that they had doing it. So really everything that you see here is just based on them and what they did. So that's the only reason I'm here.
Ballpark price for a prop?
Sure.
I mean, how much do you get for them?
A smaller one like this, but 54 inches would be about $475, $500. Some of my bigger ones, my 74 inch would be something like $1,700, and then some of my bigger ones, you know, closer to probably my biggest one's like $6,000.
Is prop making the only woodworking you do?
Oh yes, you don't want me to make anything else. Honest to goodness, it'd all fall in your lap if I tried to make a table. You don't want me to make anything else, but props are my thing.
How many patents do you hold?
How many what?
Patents.
None. No, anybody could copy my design. But it's not about the design. It's not about the prop. It's about your experience. And I'm up there on that one.
Do you have a website people can buy your decorative props from?
I do. It's culverprops.com. I generally don't have many. That's actually why I didn't end up with a finished propeller here. This is our busiest time of the year. Everyone is ready to fly. Everybody needs their propellers to do it, and I'm way behind. I'm 6 to 8 months behind on orders. So I am. I looked around, I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's in process. I had nothing to bring. So apologize for that. But yes, that's where you can find them when I have them from time to time.
Do you, you talk. Do you, you've talked about the experimental side of the airplanes and domestically. Do you sell any internationally, and to any, and what would the regulations be in other countries or other parts of the world?
I do sell them internationally, a lot to Australia, a few to Canada, mostly Australia. Actually, Robert Basley makes World War I kits. He's here in Holden, Missouri, and he ships them all over the world, and normally I get one of my props in his crates. So there are some shipping paperwork, but it's not much. I just say that they're kiln dried and that they're sealed. And then they generally don't cause me any problems. They just go right through. I mean, I generally don't have many problems at all shipping internationally. For them, I'm not sure about their regulations, but I haven't had a problem with, if they're building their own airplane, generally the prop isn't normally a problem. So, okay, got another one?
Thank you.
I think the key on I think the key on international shipping of wood, I make antique beds for antique wooden bed pickup trucks. And the key we run into on international shipping is we either have to send it through a chemical process to make sure there's no bugs at all, or it has to be, well, as you said, sealed. If the wood is sealed, then you can ship internationally, but either that or it has to go through a certain chemical process to kill the bugs.
Yeah, if not, they'll fumigate it and charge the customer extra.
And that's where the big cost is. You have to either have it done yourself or seal it.
Yes, true. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It was an amazing program. I know we really appreciate you coming. It was great. This is a small token of our appreciation. The only way you can get a coffee mug like that is to do a presentation. So thank you so much for coming and doing that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. That's our program for tonight. Oh, holding up the prop. I can hold the mug shot, and you hold the prop.
Okay.
How about that? All right. Thanks again. And everybody, thanks for coming out. It's a great program tonight. Great work. Keep bringing the show and tell items. Awesome work. And then just, as usual, help us clean up, put the chairs away. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.